Under Alberta law, if a person has been injured in a motor vehicle accident, or if the damage to the vehicles exceeds $1,000, by law you're required to report that to the police. However, at the crash site, the very first thing that a person should do is make sure that anybody who's injured, that their condition is stabilized. And the second thing that you should then do is call 911 and request police assistance at the site and medical assistance if that's a requirement also. Once you've done that, the next thing that you need to do is exchange information with the other driver. That's required by law, and you need to give them your information after you've got theirs. Anyway, the police will then show up and the medical personnel will show up. The police will require the information from you, give that to them, and don't move the vehicles until you've had an opportunity to get that instruction from the police, because it's often very important that the police see the location of the vehicles and the crash debris on the road, that type of an idea, in an effort to determine who's responsible legally for the accident. Once the police give you the go-ahead, then you can move the vehicles. The police will give you, at the end of that investigation on site, a document called the collision report. That's a pretty important document. You don't want to lose that. You want to bring that into your lawyers. They're going to need that, the information that's contained on that document. The next thing that you need to do, of course, is if there's any witnesses on location, you definitely need to get their names and phone numbers so we can contact them. You'd often be amazed and surprised at how after the fact that the accident has occurred, the other side says, well, we're not responsible for that accident, you are. And so that's where the witnesses come in. They're really important. Last but not least, if you've got a cell phone or a camera, take pictures of the damage to the vehicles, take pictures of the location of the accident, and any other pictures at the scene that you think might be of interest. That's always worthwhile doing.
Now, there's an accident fax form that you have. Every driver, whether you're on your motorcycle, in your vehicle, should probably be carrying one of these sorts of tools in their vehicle with them. Tell us a little bit about the information that document requests.
Yeah, there's a little book called the Little Black Book. It's put out by Belt Drive Betty, and it's for motorcycle riders. You'll find on the last pages of the book a form called the Accident Fax Record. We highly recommend that that you fill out this particular form if you've been involved in an accident, at the accident scene if you can. This will record all of the information that you need for your lawyers, for the police, and for litigation. We originally had produced this form, and we'd called it the glove box accident fax form. And this one, as I said, it's in the back of the book produced by Belt Drive Betty, the Little Black Book, which is a rider's friend.
And at what point should a rider decide that a lawyer is needed?
Well, there are two situations where you're going to need a lawyer after a crash. Of course, the first situation is if you've been injured, or anybody on your bike's been injured, or a vehicle, as the case may be. You need, in my opinion, the sooner you talk to a lawyer, the better. The reason for that is that they've got to start the evidentiary gathering process, and the quicker that's started, the less that gets lost between the cracks. That's the first situation. The second situation is if you're not at fault for the accident and the other driver is claiming they're not at fault for the accident and saying that you are, or alternatively, if the police come and they don't charge anybody, or they in fact charge you with the accident and you know you're not at fault, you really need to talk to a lawyer pretty quickly after that event, because again, the same routine, the better that you're represented, the less grief it's going to cause. Because if you get charged for being at fault for the accident, that can have adverse effects on your the amount of damages that you're going to collect. I guess the other thing that you need to remember is that the at-fault insurance company, their adjuster's job is to pay out the least amount of money for the damages created in this accident that they can. That's what they do.
So in other words, what you're telling me is that the insurance adjuster is not your friend.
Well, I wouldn't put it quite like that. I'd put it a little differently. They've got a job to do, and their job is not necessarily in the injured plaintiff's best interests. Their job is to reduce the amount of money that their insurance company has to pay out to get this claim resolved. Plaintiff's counsel, on the other hand, their job is quite a bit different. Our job is to ensure that our clients get the full and proper compensation for the injuries and damages that they've suffered.
What are some of the things that insurance companies do to mitigate their losses when it comes to a crash situation? Do they send investigators out to come in and follow you, especially if it's a bigger claim?
The insurance companies hire a lot of experts to try and minimize the amount they have to pay out. First off, they have professional insurance adjusters who are highly trained to collect information that favors their companies. And then they have specialist doctors, they have specialist legal people, they have specialist psychologists, the accident reconstructionists, the list goes on and on. And it's really hard for an individual to counter that wall of specialists without having legal representation, because if this is the only type of law that you do, and you do it day in and day out, you're familiar with all of the different types of experts, when you need them, how you need them, when you need to counter the insurance company's experts, etc. And I guess the best analogy that I can use here is that if you've got a serious heart problem, you don't go to your family doctor to have heart surgery. Why? Well, because family doctors don't do heart surgery day in and day out. And that same reasoning applies when you go to hire a lawyer for representing you with these types of injuries in this types of case. One of the first things that happens is they'll deny liability for the accident for their insured's driving and say their position is they're not paying out any money. And the next position that they will take is, well, we're only partially responsible for the accident, so we're only contributorily negligent for the accident, and therefore we're only going to pay out a percentage of the injured party's damages. And or they can say it was an act of God. The road was icy and it wasn't our driver's fault because the road was icy. One of the things that they can do to mitigate their damages, of course, is through their adjusters. They'll make you a low-ball offer saying that your injuries fall underneath the cap under the new Alberta legislation. And they'll offer you $4,000 or less and saying, well, the law says that's all you're entitled to. And, with all due respect, I think you really ought to go see counsel before you accept those kinds of offers. First, to see if your injuries fall in that category. Secondly, to see if that's the only head of damages that they should be paying out on. Another thing that the insurance companies will do is they'll hire private investigators to come and take pictures of you, videos. The private investigators will sometimes talk to your co-workers, your neighbors, your ex-spouses, and they will sometimes even go as far as to start getting onto your social media spots and start seeing what you're saying on there and try and use that against you. So there's a world of things that they can and will do to reduce the amount that they have to pay out, and that's their job. But our job is to counter that too. One of the things that I'd recommend is that when the at-fault adjuster contacts you and wants to come and see you and get a statement, or he wants to ask you a bunch of questions about how the accident happened or what your injuries are, or get you to sign forms that allows them to get your work information, it's my recommendation that in that situation you always tell that adjuster, please contact my lawyer for any information you want regarding myself or this case. And that way it's pretty good protection so that information that shouldn't be given to the other side isn't given to the other side. And so we highly recommend that you just tell them, call my lawyer, because when you say that, at that point, they're going to stop bugging you and they're going to talk to the lawyers. The other thing that a lot of people worry about is, oh my goodness, if I hire a lawyer, I'm involved in the legal process. Well, the legal process, I can tell you this based on 30 years experience. Very, very few cases ever go to a courtroom. I would suggest less than 1%. A number of cases will go to what we call examinations for discovery, and that's where we go into a room, we prepare our clients, brief them on what the examination for discovery process is, and we go into a room and their lawyer is there and the other driver, and they ask you questions, you have to answer them, we ask their person questions, they have to answer them, and it's all under oath, and the simplest thing in the world is just tell the truth and there's nothing to worry about. Well, when you're in the hospital, we don't want you to keep a diary. You got enough problems that you got to deal with in the hospital. We want you just to concentrate on getting well and getting out of the hospital. Once you get out of the hospital and we met with you, we give you something called the accident injury journal. And in this binder, there's a number of sections in it. We've got wage loss record, and it goes through all of those particular headings, and expense record index and diary index, appointment records, and instructions to the client with regards to the medical reports, with regards to legal documents, and general correspondence instructions from this is how we'd like you to do certain things. And we give every client one of these, and so all of the correspondence that we receive or send out on their case, we send our clients a copy of it, and we ask them to keep it all in this diary, in this journal, excuse me. And the reason that we want them to keep it in the journal is so they've got one ready reference place where all their information is contained, and it keeps them up to date with what we're doing on the file at all times also. And this brings up another point, like if you're in the hospital and you can't get out to see a lawyer, we'll go, if you're in the hospital or if you're at home recuperating from a serious injury, we'll come to you wherever you are in the province and or in BC, the Yukon, Northwest Territories. Just give us a call and we'll talk to you and come out and see you and do what we need to do and getting the information, getting your case going.
And at Braithwaite and Boyle, you guys have quite a team. You have offices in Edmonton, Calgary, Red Deer, and you can service riders from BC, the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and the province of Alberta, correct?
Well, that's correct. Here at Braithwaite Boyle, we've been doing this for over 27 years. We've had over 18,500 clients who have been injured parties that we've helped. Many of these clients have been motorcycle riders and or still are motorcycle riders.
Just for the sake of our audience, because it is a motorcycle website and newspaper, well, thank you very much for your time, Ken. Any other word of advice to someone who finds themselves in a crash? Anything else that you can think of, that little tidbit that would...
I guess one of the most important things is, when you're coming to see your lawyer, tell them the absolute truth. Tell your doctors the truth. If you have to go to discoveries, tell the truth there. And, people often say, well, is it okay to embellish? And I'd rather you just told the plain unvarnished truth. And the reason for that is that it makes your case go faster, you usually get better compensation, and you don't spend years and years fighting with the other side, because if they believe you, this whole process works just ever so much smoother. Yeah, I should also mention that we have 24-hour phone service, and why do you want to come see the lawyers at Braithwaite Boyle? Well, I guess the first reason is that accident injury law is the only law we do. We've been doing it for, as I said, over 27 years now, and we understand riders and the type of accidents they get into, the type of injuries that they get, and the type of damages that they suffer as a result of these accidents. And being riders, we understand riders, and last but not least, we also understand that on occasion there's a bit of a bias against riders out there, and we're used to working with that through that. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you very much for your time, Ken.